Welcome back to another effects tutorial on this loop station. My name is Playgue, and today we're going to be talking about the lo-fi. The lo-fi is available on everything, so that gives us a lot of layering possibilities. What is lo-fi? Lo-fi in this context stands for low fidelity, and this is a type of distortion that turns your sound into a more classic video game sound effect, 8-bit era, 4-bit era sounds. This is also known as a bitcrusher. So if you've heard the term bitcrusher or see tutorials on the bitcrusher, this is going to be the same thing. What we're doing is we are taking the audio signal and running it through a bitcrusher, which degrades the audio signal in a very particular way. So before we talk about the parameters, I want to give a brief explanation on how the sound is processed in this device. I promise it'll be really brief and it'll be really easy to understand. In fact, you'll feel smart for being able to. I promise. I want you to imagine that you have a waveform of sound, and that waveform is divided into sections, whatever number of sections that happens to be. And each segment is given a particular value, whatever those values happen to be too. The computer then plays back each section in order, reading off each value as it goes by. And that's how we hear the sound. Makes sense, right? That's it. Told you it'd be brief. Now you know everything you need to know to understand how this lo-fi works. So let's go into the parameters. We have 3 parameters: the bit depth, the sample rate, and the balance. Let's talk about bit depth. So computers read and write things with bits, ones and zeros, right? And in the case of this device, it is using 16 bits normally. So remember I talked about the values that each section can be in? Well, this device stores that information with 16 bits. So there's 16 slots that it can use to describe the sound or the information. This parameter will lower the amount of bits allowed to be used when processing the sound. Most of the time it is 16, but we can reduce the number of slots that are allowed to be used to read out those particular sounds or those particular values. This is why we get the reduced quality of sound, because we are limiting the device's ability to be more precise with reading back the values of each segment. And so now this number should make a lot more sense. Don't you feel smart? Essentially, this will control the amount of distortion in the processed noise that we're doing. So next we have the sample rate, and the sample rate, it works in a similar way, but instead of the vertical axis of value, it works in the horizontal axis. So we said that the waveform is broken up into sections. In the case of the MK1, it has a sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz, or 44,100 hertz. That means the MK1 breaks it down into that number of sections. That is a lot of precision and a lot of data. Well, the sample rate parameter reduces the number of slices the waveform will get. So you can have this completely off. You can just have it at its 44.1 kilohertz, or you can have it down to 1/2, all the way down to 1/32. Now, the higher this value, the more video gamey it will sound, the more like bit crushed it will be. And finally, we have the balance, and this is how much the affected sound will be present versus your original sound. And this is the thing that is controlled by the knob. So to help you understand contextually what the lo-fi is doing in a more visual sense, so what you have essentially on this device is a picture that is 44,100 pixels, with each pixel's color being represented by a hex value that is 16 bits long. And we can decrease the number of pixels, or we can decrease the bits of precision allowed to be used to describe each color. And so essentially what we're doing is we're degrading the quality of the picture or the sound. And degrading the quality can be useful for both pictures as well as sound. So now that you understand the lo-fi and its technical specs of what makes it do what it does, let's talk about some advice with the lo-fi. Be careful with your volume. Your volume will start to increase as the bit depth goes down. So I'll give you an example with my voice. And as I increase this, you can hear that my volume is, oh my God. You can hear, that was ridiculous. You can hear that my volume is increasing as I decrease the bit depth. So another piece of advice is if you were getting a lot of static with your lo-fi, what you can do is you can increase the volume or the levels of the thing that is going into the lo-fi, whether that be your instrument or your voice or something that has already been recorded. It's not perfect and it won't remove every bit of static, but it will reduce the amount of static that you are hearing. So this effect will add a note to your sound, and so you can use this to remain in key with the rest of your track. Now, these notes will get more and more quiet as you reduce the sample rate. And the notes aren't exact, similar to the way you make delay notes. If you watch my delay tutorials, the actual tone isn't exact, but if you can use the actual note, you can tune that in with your track. You can hear the note playing in there, and as I reduce this, you'll hear the note change. And as I went lower and lower, you could hear the volume of the note was going down as well. So you can't hear the note as well in the lower bit depths or the lower sample rates. This effect is really good to add to bass lines. So I have several examples of this. So for example, you can add it to a guitar to bass. We can add a note to our bass line, for example, that we just record straight out. So for example, if I record a basic filtered bass with the lo-fi. So now we have a bass line here. I can then use a vinyl flick to bring that note down. So now I have a really sick bass line to my track. You can even combine the lo-fi with other effects to really elevate the bass line. Like, let's just have a little bit of fun. Holy crap, we can get pretty crazy with this. Another thing that you can do is you can use the lo-fi as a transition point. So you can start with the track effects at whatever bit depth that you want, have it with a low sample rate of some value and or even off, and then have the balance at 0, 100, and then as the drums play, you slowly turn down the balance to offer some sort of transition. You're opening up the filter as the track kind of builds tension. You can do the same thing with a lo-fi. Another use of lo-fi is to do something called the yoi bass. This is actually an idea by Christoph, which I will link their video in the description as well if you want to learn the specifics of how to do this. But essentially it uses the lo-fi with a sample rate of, I think, between 1/14th and a 16th. Somewhere around there with a filter. And you get this kind of yoi yoi. You can also get the lo-fi effect with other effects on the loop station as well. And what's really nice about kind of emulating the lo-fi sound is you don't get the distortion aspect with it. So the distortion really is part of the lo-fi, but if you don't want the distortion but you still want a like decreased depth in the sound, there are several ways to be able to emulate that. One way is to use a high-pass filter to emulate that sound.
So we're going to compare this sound, the lo-fi, with something like a high-pass filter.
A high-pass filter, it gives it that old-timey kind of feel, while at the same time, it feels like the depth of the sound is being removed. Oh God, but you get a lot more clarity. You can also do the same thing
with a ring mod. Oh God, what has science done? You just put the frequency at 50-50 so then you can still hear the clarity of the sound. Oh geez. Oh God.
We have the phone box. The phone box also gives a similar feel, but it cuts out a lot of the frequencies in the sound, so we can get another similar sounding effect to the lo-fi. And finally, we have an isolator at a low band cut. This also gives a very lo-fi kind of feeling without the distortion. Oh God, what has science done?
And there you have it. That is... And there you have... All right, I'll stop the device. A lot of really, really cool things. A lot of things that I haven't even talked about yet, but you'll see examples of in the example track that I'll be playing at the end. I'll leave you off also with a really awesome video that covers lo-fi, the lo-fi effect in general. It also has some really good visual examples for you in case you didn't understand my explanations. But with all that said, let's look at a track that utilizes the lo-fi and the cool things that we can do with it.
Intensity complexity will make you groove. P-L-A-G-U-E, I'm the king of this groove. Intensity complexity will make you groove. P-L-A-G-U-E, I'm the king of this groove. Yeah, I'm the king of the groove. 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 I'm the yeah, I'm the king.